All right, this section is going to talk about how to analyze your data in schoolnet. Now, in order to analyze data in schoolnet, you have to have data in there, which means that either you or your students have taken one of the county benchmarks that have been administered online for schoolnet, or whether you have assigned an online assessment in schoolnet. And the only other option there is that they've taken a paper and pencil and done a Scantron, and you've scanned it, and then it's gone into schoolnet. So that's where your data is going to come from in schoolnet, is that they've taken an online assessment. So when you're on your home screen, this is kind of what it's going to look like. You know, it's a two-part screen, kind of. This first part up here will be information. Anytime they do any new things with schoolnet or updates, you're going to find some information here. So every once in a while, it's important to read this. But you want to scroll down and find My Classroom. Now, I have, where I'm playing right now is a demo site because I didn't want to pull up anybody's data for everybody. And so I'm using a demo site right now. So forgive that. That's why you don't recognize anybody here. So at the bottom, you're going to see Your Classroom. This will list the sections that you teach. So if you teach math to 3 sections or teach science, social studies, whatever, that's where your sections will be listed. So you can choose from there which one you want to look at. Here you will notice you have several tabs. You'll have your district and local tests will be here. Your classroom test, if I click, you would find any tests that you gave per subject area here. Standardized testing and upcoming tests I would not worry about. But let's look, because there's some data here with this one, at the local test, some district tests. So this one is the grade 3 ELA cumulative test. You'll also notice that I can scroll down and look at different ones, so you can go to them this way as well. The first thing you'll notice is that here is the percentage for the class for this test. So 75%. That sounds really great. 19 students took the test, so you can look at that very quickly and make sure that if you have 19 students that they all took it. If you had 24 students and only 19 took it, you would need to look and see who didn't. This tells you how many test questions were on there. That's all self-explanatory. If you scroll down again, this would be, let me try that again, where your students' names would be listed. So they would show up here, and then it will tell you what they made on the test, and then what that looks like as far as the breakdown here. So that would be by student as well. The other thing for you to notice here is I can change it to performance by standard, and I can say, all right, well, on this standard, what did it look like? So now I'm going to, as soon as it changes over for us, now we're going to look at the students and see on that particular standard that I clicked on, what does it look like? So this student, there was 4 questions on that test. They got all 4 right, and it goes from there. So this is by standard and not by whole questions on the test, because that would be, so like I said, that's by standard. And I can change that to whichever standard on the test I wanted to do. I'm going to go back to overall performance, and that way you can see it changed. So right here, you're going to notice 4 different reports you can pull up that I think will be useful to you. The first one is your item analysis. And so this is something that you typically do anyway when you give an assessment or an assignment to a classroom of students. It's starting to rain. I'm in the car recording right now, so if it gets too hard raining, I'll go back inside. So it's trying to load. This is the item analysis that will let you see question by question how the students performed on the test. Hopefully it's coming for us. I have to play me some Jeopardy music. Open me a peppermint. I should play a game that says, what sound is this? schoolnet's not typically this slow, but it is today because it's random. I'm going to make sure I didn't lose my authentication. I always have to check that if things get slow. Okay, now it changed. So I'm under item analysis on that same test. I'm going to scroll down. And now what you're going to notice is question by question. So up here across the top, item 1, item 2, all the way to item 44. It's going to tell me what percentage the class did on that question. So when I'm looking at it, if I look and go, this one's 57%, this one's 47%, this one's 94%, which one do you think you need to spend more time on? Obviously, it's these two here, and as we move on down the questions, you'll see more. But this is going to be where you can look and see where they're struggling. And so I also can look at it and say, item 1 was this standard. Item 2 was this standard. So when I look at this, those are both RI 3.2s. They didn't do well. I know that's something I'm going to need to hit. The other thing you're going to notice is that the point value, which for the most part is just 1 point, it'll tell you the correct answer for each one. If I scroll down now, I'm going to see the students listed. Okay, green check means they got it right. Red letter means they got it wrong and what they picked as the wrong answer. I know when I was in a classroom, that was one of the big things I used to do is when I would see they got it wrong, I would look and see what most people picked as the wrong answer. If it's something that's overall, they all picked D and it was wrong, then either I taught it wrong or I explained it wrong or they're not understanding it right. I looked to see why they all picked that wrong answer. I was working with a teacher one day and she noticed that it was all her ESL students had picked the wrong answer. So we went back and looked at the question and noticed it was a language barrier. It was something that vocabulary-wise they didn't understand. That's completely fixable. But what I like is that all the columns are sortable. So if I hit the word sort, it's going to reorganize my data now. And it's going to tell me, sort them by what they picked as the wrong answer. All of them picked A as the wrong answer. So when I'm looking back at that test, I want to see what A is. Because if they're all picking A, there's some reason they're all picking A. It's not just, a guess there. So I like that feature, that you can sort all of your columns. The other feature I like with this is I can get it to highlight low-performing students. And so it's going to go through here now and tell me, and with the pink color, are going to be my students that are low-performing on this assessment. All right, when I look at that, and I'm going, all right, for question 1, let's pretend like they're not understanding main idea. All right. I can go in and I can select these students that picked A for question 1 that were low performing on this test, or all of them that picked A, or whatever I want to do. I can select students individually now for whatever reason I want to, because we all know that you're assessing each week and then you're reteaching, you're regrouping, you're really looking at the individual students and figuring out what they need for the next week. That's what you do wonderfully every day anyway. This is helping you out a little bit so that I can go in and pick these students now. And at the bottom, I can say I want to add them to a group. Okay? If you have them grouped for reteaching, for win time, for, I don't know, everybody calls it something different. But however you're going to reteach next week, I need this group to be, my EC group for next week. And then I hit go, and then those 6 students, whoever I selected up here, are going to now be listed in another subgroup. So that when I go in and make an assignment, or I go in and make another separate assessment, I can assign that to just that group of students. So this does a really good piece with some differentiation there. So I like that feature. You'll also notice that if I scroll down a little bit, I'm on the item analysis again, still there. At the bottom, it has the standards alignment for each question if you need to see it this way. It's just another way to see it. So question 1, is that standard? Question 2, is that standard? So you can see it this way. Okay? That is the item analysis. The other one that I like a lot, and I can go back home and click, or I can click here, is the standards mastery. This is a really good feature with analyzing tests. Dun, 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 dun. It's coming. I promise. But this one is going to break it down by standard now, and let you look, like I said, especially getting to be this time of year when you really want to look at these standards, if you're doing a more cumulative test or a benchmark test or things, that you can look at those standards and really see what you need to go back in and reteach, go back in and hit again, look at where your kids are falling in placement, and I'll show you that in just a minute as soon as it gets there. It's coming. Surely but slowly. A lot of this is taking some slow time because I am working in a demo site. This is a demo site given to me by DPI, so it's pulling from them and not from just from schoolnet. So that's part of the slowness right now. There it comes. Okay, so now when I scroll down, you're going to look and you're going to see the standards listed. So the only standards you'll see listed are the standards that you just assessed. So this was a 44 question test, so there were a lot of standards. So if you look across through here, it's going to tell you a couple things. How many number of items were on the test? Okay. So this test looks like it was pretty balanced as far as how many questions they put per standard. It looks like it's a pretty balanced test. So that will tell you that, how many questions for that standard were there. The other thing it'll tell you over here is how many times you assessed that standard. Now, this is only going to tell you when you make a schoolnet test. You might assess this standard a zillion times in your classroom, but if you did not give it as a schoolnet online assessment, they don't know about it. So that's where that comes from. It's telling you how many times it was assessed. That's where that is. If I click on it, it's going to go back in and show me which test this was in as well. The other feature I like with this is that with this standard, and I click on any of these numbers in blue, what it's going to do now is it's going to say, with this standard, this is where my students fall. This is the grouping that they're in percentage-wise on this test. So I like this feature because when you look at this, you're going to want, ideally as the year progresses, you're going to want to see less students here, more students here. Again, this is by standard, okay? So that was the first one. Anytime you're on any of these reports, you can go in and create a PDF, like if you need to see it on paper, if you need to see it for a data meeting, if you need to see it to share with, your ESL teacher or your EC teacher or one of your co-teachers, if they need to see something or if you need to share it with a parent, you can do a PDF. Let me go back one. So again, this is by standard. Well, another cool feature with this is that anywhere when you're doing these reports with schoolnet that you see this orange looking little M, this is where the materials are in schoolnet. So when I looked at this, if I see more students falling on the right-hand side of the percentage as opposed to the left-hand side of the percentage, I know that's probably a standard I need to look at again. If you've taught it till you're blue in the face and you don't know what else to do, you go, I need some more resources. I need some more help. What else can I share with them? This M here takes you to the specific materials in schoolnet for that standard. I'm hoping that all of my elementary schools have seen this, and middle schools and high schools I can't guarantee because I'm not there. But schoolnet is not just online assessment. It's not just making tests. There's tons and tons of resources in schoolnet that you can find on whatever subject you're teaching. And so what I did is when I clicked on the materials, the little M beside that standard, this is going to bring me to materials just for this standard. Now you're going to see if it has an LP, this is a lesson plan. If it has an IU, that's an instructional unit. If it has an R, it's a resource. If it has an A, it's an assessment. So you can go in and look at this and be able to pull it up. So this is a lesson plan on a recipe for writing fairy tales. So if I click on it, then it tells you a little bit about what this is going to do. And then most of the time, it takes you to an outside source. So this one's happened, it's going to take us to the Read, Write, Think website. If you've not used that, it's a great one. But it's going to take you to a lesson plan there, but it hits on that specific standard. So I like that. So when you're needing something specific, you can do that, especially reteach and just a different alternative. And it's got some good stuff with it. So that will take you out of schoolnet and into that. If you like it, you can hit save, and you don't have to find it again later. It's going to stay within your schoolnet resources there. So that's a good one there. We're going back out. Okay, so that was standards mastery. Summary statistics. I don't think I'm hitting the wrong one. Let's see. We'll go back in per student now and look at a summary for this student. So here's your student. Here's their raw score on the test, and it tells you whether or not they were proficient and what their percentile was. Remember how many questions were on this test? 44. Okay, this student got them all right. Obviously, they are proficient. So it gives you, that kind of thing that you'll see that way too, if you need to see it that way. I'm gonna have to back out to show you this part. Let's see if it changes. This again is the skills analysis. This will let you change by standard as well and be able to see that percentage. It shows you the district average, the school average, and your section average or your grade level average. So that one's important. The other one I want to show you, I'm going to go back to home so you can see where I'm finding it, is this standards performance. It's new. I like this one, probably one of the best. So I clicked on standards performance. It's going to pull up for me standard by standard on this test. Okay. Anywhere that you are at that you want to click on that information, it's going to again pull you up a percentage to tell me how they did on that standard. The feature I like more than anything is if I go into and look at the students now, because I looked at it as a class, I looked as a standard so that I knew what I needed to reteach, but I need to look at individual students now and see what they need to do. This is probably where you're doing some of your small group teaching. This is where you're doing some of your remediation, individually, or your conferencing. So I clicked on a student and this pulled up. You can see when you click on it, it's going to be your student name. A lot of people don't know this exists in schoolnet, but it does. It's populating with your PowerSchool now. So if you're ever at home and you need this information, log into schoolnet and you can find it. It'll give you all their information, address, phone number, that kind of thing, parents. It'll tell you currently what classes they're in, if, especially high school and middle school if you need that. It'll tell you academic performance down here at the bottom. It'll tell you what their strong standards are, what their weak standards are. It's really kind of specific, which is nice. The other thing that I like that it will do is it will let you go and look at benchmark test data. So the test that we have just been analyzing was the cumulative test here. So I'm going to click on that test. Now we know this student did very well. I think she made 100. But whether they did or they didn't, what I think is important with this test is that now it's going to tell me question by question, here's the standard, here's what the standard was asking me to do. If they got it wrong, then it will tell me the correct answer, what they picked. But what I like more than anything is it's going to let me click here on view for the items, and it's going to let me actually look at the test. So that if I'm sitting down with this student and I know they missed it, then we can talk about it together and we can go in and say, okay, I missed this one. This is what I did. This is why, and let them show you their thinking. So we can go back in and look at the passage again. We can look at the correct answer, what it should be. I like this because it tells me the most common error as a district was this. I think that's huge because if this student had picked A, that gives me a little validation that they're picking the most common wrong answer. They're not just picking randomly. So I like that it does that. And again, it shows you the standard here at the bottom. So I think this is a huge piece of your data, is to be able to do this and be able to pull that up with a student. Classroom tests, you can do the same thing. The one thing that's on here that I'm going to mention really quickly while we're here is that if you have a student that has to have a read aloud modification, this is where you will do it. So anywhere within schoolnet that you have a list of your students that's blue that you can click on the student. This page comes up. This last tab right here that says Test Nav P&P, whatever modification they have been given, whether it be 504, IEP, your ESL students can receive accommodations from your ESL teacher. This is where you'll give them the text-to-speech. All you do is check it, and then we don't really do anything else, and then you hit save. You do that one time a year for that student. As long as that IEP or whatever doesn't change, you're done with that. Then you make the test a read aloud test. So that changes each time, but this does not. So you can do that at the beginning of the year and be done. So a lot of people did not even know that existed in schoolnet, but it's there. So that's with the standard mastery part. So with the data, the best thing you can do is to go in there and play around and be able to look at that, the different things. This will tell you as far as the section, the school, the district, that kind of thing. If you're up here at the top again and you look at the your dashboard, wait a little bit longer again. But you'll notice that this is where it's going to give you some information about your school, about your classroom, and as far as how they're doing test-wise. This is where you also can see your school data as well. It'll come up eventually, but it'll show you school percentages for things. So I'm hoping this helps you be able to analyze that data just a little bit more. If you ever need any help, please contact one of us, and we'll be glad to come help you. But the data portion with schoolnet is huge, being able to do this, and that's why I think doing that online test is great. So let me know. Thank you.